What's up, man? Good to see you, Benson. How you been?
Doing so great. Thank you so much. I'm excited for today. I'm
Yeah,
excited to see how our two systems can come together and work in harmony. The meeting we
exactly.
had the other day just blew my mind. It was really cool to see how there's a completely different way of leveraging the data in our system to find amazing opportunities to generate revenue. And I'm excited for you to talk about it.
Thanks for putting this together and having me. I mean, we've crossed paths for quite some time now, and I love the data that Privy provides. I love the platform. I come from the creative deal side, right? All about creative financing, deal structuring, which is sort of the opposite of what most people use the data for, right? They use the data primarily to find wholesale deals or cash offers, or they're trying to find something they can either fix and flip or buy and hold. We're looking at the data in an entirely different light. And I'm so excited to share that. So, we got a lot of people on here that probably maybe even know of us already, maybe have been on maybe already are Privy users. This is going to be a great exercise on how to repurpose data that they didn't know that existed, some hidden tricks and techniques to get more deals done. And
Yep.
we created the whole deal evaluator software to take data just like we're going to show tonight and use it to find deals that don't work in other strategies. And hopefully we can add some value to the viewers tonight.
Oh, we definitely will. I know that many people here, your mind's going to be absolutely blown when you get to see what Nick is going to show you. But there's a process to this, right? And if you're familiar with Privy, we're a real estate investment software company. I'm one of the owners, or I've been in the business for 20 plus years. I've seen everything from buy and hold to fix and flip to wholesale. But guess what? I haven't done any of creative deal structure. And so that's why Nick Legamaro is here, is because he's the expert in this way that I've never seen before. I've seen lots of like sub twos and seller finance, and I've seen a lot of these kinds of things that many different people teach and you can get educated on, but yours is unique. So I encourage you guys to stay to the end, because I'm going to show you first the main way of generating leads, doing local market education, really getting up to speed on what's happening in your target market and how to find leads. And then ultimately, there's going to be stuff that just doesn't make sense from the main strategies that we all know about. And instead of just dumping those leads down the trash, right? Because that takes time and money. Like lead generation is probably one of the most costly things in your business. And so if you're just throwing those in the trash because you don't know about another strategy, then that's bad on you. So pay attention, open up your ears, take some notes. And then at the end, we'll have some discussion about what we saw. Okay.
Yeah, one other thing I want to add to that, we'll be giving some stuff away towards the end of this. But more importantly, I wanted to say it right now, we're going to move through this fairly quick because everybody's had a long day probably. And what we're going to do is, we're going to probably do some version of a half-day masterclass at sometime in the very near future to really break this down at a really granular level so we can give real true value and really show how to really take full effect of not only the Privy platform and the data, but also the deal evaluator software.
And that's what you're talking about toward the end, right? You're talking about actually.
Yeah, I'm going to share it. So I want you to go and start and show how Privy is typically used, because we want to use that data too, right? We want to, like you just said, there's going to be opportunities where is it a traditional cash wholesale deal, or is it a buy and hold? Is it a fix and flip? Or we're going to add the secret element on how to use the data in a creative fashion. And that's when I'm going to jump in. So I'm going to be quiet and learn something new from you, like I do every time I hear you chat.
Awesome. Well, you guys, so when Privy was first conceived of over 10 years ago, we were trying to solve a lot of the same problems that you're facing in your business every day. And it's, consistent deal flow, or you're spending money on ineffective marketing campaigns. You're writing offers on countless deals, but you're not winning bids. Someone always bids you out. Maybe you're getting a lead, or somebody sends you a property and you're running comps and you can't determine what the after repair value is. And then you can't determine what to offer, and then you don't take action. Or maybe you're doing wholesale, right? I know we've got a lot of people who use Privy for wholesaling, but they just can't find a strategic buyers list of people that are actually taking action in today's economic climate, because it's changing all the time. And you remember just 8 months ago, Nick, when hedge funds were buying everything, and remember those good old days?
Yeah.
And now markets have shifted and the numbers have shifted. And so what we teach you is that instead of just looking for deals based off of where you live, what's convenient, what's comfortable, what's in your own backyard, look for deals based off of where the data tells you to look. And fortunately for us, we don't have to guess. We can see based off of the successes of other real estate investors, which markets are the best places to look. So location is, in my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to generating consistent deal flow. It's not which list you're targeting. It's not if you're doing text blasting or mailers or doing cold calls or, what book you read, whether it's wholesale or fix and flip or buy and hold, all that stuff matters. But if you're looking in the wrong areas where the ingredients are not present for you to assemble a deal, you're wasting your time. So if you've ever read a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, the second habit is begin with the end in mind. This is a tried and true business practice that people have been using for years. But in this sense, it means you don't look in areas where there's low investor activity. You only look in areas where there's moderate to high investor activity. And the things that you need to prove value, comparables, the data you need to analyze properties, rental comps, buyers, investor-friendly agents, those are all already present there. So why not just look for deals in those areas, right? It makes sense. You're probably thinking, well, duh, Benson, of course. But I can guarantee you that 9 out of 10 people don't look at it that way. They go drive around where they live, and now they think they're doing some business in their real estate business.
Yeah, what I'll say to that, the greatest gift COVID gave us, honestly, is the ability to do things in a virtual environment. And
Yes.
as a result of that, we don't have to drive around our own neighborhoods anymore or look for deals in our backyard, because that's how we know we don't negotiate and we don't buy and sell any longer that way. So take what you're going to say very, very seriously, because I'm doing deals outside of areas that I would not typically have done as a result of the data that now available.
Oh yeah, and that wasn't an option before, right? That would just literally was not an option before. Fortunately, now it's been proven to us that it is viable. And for a lot of people, it was scary. And people were freaked out by that whole situation. But you can now operate in any state in the United States with the best data that's available and have access to all of the things you need to have the best possible outcome. Just high level, some of the things that you can get from Privy, you can get off-market leads. There's so many platforms out there that give off-market leads, foreclosures, absentee owners, vacancies, tired landlords, zombie properties. It's been democratized. Everybody has it. You have to have it. Okay, we've got that too. We give it up to 10,000 per month. We also have the public record data, so you can research properties, you can research homeowners, you can get information for doing skip tracing. We don't do skip tracing natively inside of Privy. We do allow you to export lists, though, like I said, for either doing off-market leads or building buyers lists. We're the only platform in the country that has direct to MLS data on scale. Now, why does that matter? Well, it's because the MLS is the same data that agents and appraisers use to analyze properties. And if you're cutting corners and you're going around and you're just trying to find comps on the internet, you're going to make a mistake because you're not using the best available data. Also, there's amazing deals you can get from the MLS. Most people think you can't get good deals from on market. It's absolutely false. In a research project we did with, I think, 5 select markets, 6 out of 10 properties that we counted as good deals, I think it was up to 70% of the ARV, all came from the MLS. So if you're ignoring MLS deals as a potential source for leads, you're missing out on the majority of the stuff that's out there. The problem is that people don't look for MLS deals properly. They look where they live. And guess what? You probably live in a crappy market. That's a technical term, Nick. I cited that from a business journal. It means you're looking in the wrong areas where the investor activity is not present. And if you are looking for an MLS deal in an area where there's no investor activity, you won't find deals. But if you can find the unrenovated deal that's priced appropriately, that's next door or down the street from a flipped house, that's a deal. So the software does all that for you in an automated fashion, leveraging algorithms and copying algorithms, but it's all based off of what other investors are already doing in their business. So let me jump into a quick demo here, and I'll show you kind of what we're looking at. And then I'm going to pass this over to Nick in a while here so he can show you how we can leverage some of the data that we're going to show you tonight into a different exit strategy that most of you probably don't even know about, or maybe you've heard about it but don't have any clue how to execute it. And he's going to show you a proprietary tool that he built that will help you analyze those properties from that creative deal fashion, just by putting in some known information and some assumptions. So what you're looking at right here is a coverage map of the whole entire United States. This is basically where all of our data comes from. Wherever you see these blue areas is where we already have direct to MLS data. We just launched some new markets. We just launched Albany. We just launched South Carolina. We launched some other markets recently. We've got close to 100 direct to MLS markets. We also have a bunch of ones that are coming soon. Those are the pink ones. And then wherever you see black or gray, that's the foundation level data that would be like county record for comping, public record data for owner information, and also third-party listing data that you might find in like a PropStream or a Batch Leads or one of those other great competitors. But we don't stop there. We put the direct to MLS on top of it so that you have the best available data. So if you can work and operate in one of these areas, it's going to be a better experience for you because you're going to have better photos, more updates. You're going to have access to the agent information. You're also going to have the best comping data available. Again, the same data that appraisers and agents use. Now, earlier I mentioned that you want to target high investor activity areas. How would you find that? Well, there's a button over here on the left where if you click this one that says fix and flip, that's an investor activity type. That shows you where all the investor activity is nationwide. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to do fix and flips, but what I'm telling you is that when you measure how good a deal is based off of a percentage of ARV or a percentage of after repair value, you have to be able to compare your house to a renovated house to determine what that ARV is. And again, I know most of us aren't thinking that far down the line. We look at a lead and then we go and then we run comps on it and hopefully it has the comps that we need. No, only look for deals where you know the comps are located. And then that way, if you find a motivated seller who's in foreclosure, or you find a deal on the MLS that's in bad shape, the chances of you having flipped comps go up, and then that's what creates the margin. And that's what allows you to submit higher offers, because the percentage of ARV, we can do, say 50%. If the ARV is in an area of 400,000, well, we can offer 200,000 if the house is sold for 400, right? But if that renovated house isn't there, and the next best sale is, let's say 300, right? Because it wasn't renovated yet. Well, guess what? We have to lower that offer down to $150,000. So the simple fact we didn't look in the right area makes our offer go down 50 grand, which lowers the chances of it being accepted. So where do we want to look here? So Nick, tell me some areas that you see on the map that look like they have some decent activity.
There's a lot of them I see on there, but I always like to let's go right smack in the middle, like somewhere maybe St. Louis, probably Kansas City. Looks like Kansas City's a pretty decent.
Yeah, Kansas City, St. Louis.
Pick any
these larger circles, higher numbers, right?
Okay.
So those are some of the ones: Chicago, Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, Phoenix, Tampa, Atlanta, Philadelphia.
There's a lot of them. For what
Nashville.
we do, they all work. So
yeah, those are some of the best ones.
Why don't you pick one and figure out, and let's just go through the exercise and show us what you would be looking for from a traditional real estate investor's perspective, either as a wholesaler or a fix and flipper. Although I'm not sure many people are fix and flipping, or buying and holding right now. The burst strategy is not looking too good right now. We'll see.
Well, it depends. We've got that data too. That's one of the newest things we added to Privy was the rental data.
That's exactly a good point, because the data tells us what to do and not to do, not what we personally think is the right answer. I think it's really important. That's why we need to use analyzing tools and software to take the personal opinion, if you will, out of the equation. If you know the data is
absolutely accurate. Yeah, it helps, and it tells a story, right? You don't have to infer or guess or use your best gut feeling. The data says what to do. So right here is all of those closed deals that have happened in the last 12 months. I actually physically picked up my life and moved to this neighborhood for 9 months because I knew it was a high investor activity area. And after doing several virtual deals, I realized that I could actually get properties that made sense from a rental perspective too. So I'm like, I'm just going to move there. And I did. So I practiced what I preach, you guys. This isn't just hearsay. I'm not just trying to sell you a piece of software. I actually use it in this exact same fashion. Over here on the left are the recent sales. So this house right here, if I click that property card, it opens up that property in this report. It's called a comparative market analysis. Privy's building one of these reports for every single property in the US. And if I tried to build this with my own MLS access and my 20 years of experience, I'd have to go to 5 different sources. I'd have to spend all day doing it, and it would take me forever and I'd never get anything done. But Privy does this for you. So it puts all this information in one location, property information. If you're licensed, we can show you agent contact info. The software automatically pulls comps for you. So comping is a big sticking point for a lot of newer people, even seasoned people, because there's a lot of subtleties in it. And most of the time, they don't have the best data that's available. But these are all the sold, active, comparable comps, and these purple ones are the rental comparables. We'll talk more about that later. When I scroll down to below that, I can actually see the deal itself. This is the before and after data on the deal. Now, we show all deals, whether they were bought on market or they were bought off market. This house actually happened to be purchased from the MLS. And Nick, just earlier, we were saying that a lot of people don't think you can find deals on the MLS. Well, look at this one. This one was purchased from the MLS for 115 grand. They sold it for 295,000. They got it at 39% of the ARV.
That's amazing.
Is that a good deal? It is. And what's cool about that, you guys, is you didn't have to go and skip trays. You didn't have to do a marketing campaign. You don't have to be a salesperson and close people over the phone or get cussed out. You just literally, all you had to do is just use a platform like Privy, find properties on the MLS, make sure the numbers work, and then write the offer. So they got this thing. There's $180,000 gross profit. But we can see the dramatic transformation here. Here's the kitchen before, here's after. It's absolutely crazy. Now, one of the very first things that I did when I started doing deals in St. Louis is I wanted to find an investor-friendly agent who could help me be my eyes and ears and boots on the ground. And the way I found her was by looking at the agents that represent these investor deals. So Krista Patton with Updwell Properties LLC is investor-friendly. We have those people inside of Privy. So if you're doing agent outreach and you're looking to find pocket listings, or you want to find someone who can help you make better decisions, that's how you would do it. If I come down here to the assessor's records, I can see who the actual flippers are. So if you are doing wholesale, the best way to build a strong buyer's list of people that have the ability, capability, and the financial resources to close deals and come back to you with a need for another property is by looking at these properties that were recently closed. So Scapular Real Estate, I don't know if that's someone's last name or what that, maybe it's Latin, I don't know. But Scapular Real Estate LLC is an active fix and flipper who's doing deals in the St. Louis market. And I know they're willing to buy a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 1,600 square foot brick 2-story home in 63118. I actually literally know their buy box, and I didn't even have to talk to them. Very, very powerful. So that's just one property. I'm not going to look at all the property, but what I recommend to you is to go back and look at the last 10 to 20 closed properties in any particular area and educate yourself on like what investors are actually doing on that in that market. What are they buying properties for? What are they selling them for? What's the percentage of ARV? And that will teach you what a deal is, because I guarantee you, most of you haven't done research enough to know what a deal is when it sits in front of you. You're kind of scrambling and you're not really sure, and you hesitate and you procrastinate. Next thing you know, the deal's gone. They got this one at 42% of the ARV. We also know the agent and the buyer on that one. Here's another one that sold for 195. This property was another on-market deal. They bought it for 85,000, sold for 195. They got it at 44% of the ARV. So there's deals out here, you guys. These people are finding them. And that's one of the cool things about this, Nick, is that when I look at this, I get FOMO. I'm like,
great.
How did they get those deals and I didn't? What the heck am I doing wrong?
It's probably not what you're doing wrong. It's probably what you're not doing at all, which is executing on a plan. I mean, executing of this. I mean, if you were to take this software literally and you made it your objective to go through 50 properties a day and identify them, and you did, and that's, and you it's all goes with execution and identifying the data and then putting offers in or having conversations. But if you're not willing to do that, the software's worthless at the end of the
It
day.
absolutely is. And I wish I could say I'm a full-time investor. I'm not. Privy is my full-time gig, but I do find deals from time to time and I will take action. But the audience, the people that are listening to me right now, you actually have the ability to set up filters to find deals automatically. But before I do that, this is the moral of this story is this is where you should be looking for deals. This is where you should be pulling lists. This is where you should be driving for dollars. This is where you should be setting Privy up to search for deals for you. If you wanted to pull a list of, say, like foreclosures, we got foreclosures and tired landlords and vacancies, but we're not just pulling random list sets. We're being very strategic. I would probably circle this neighborhood with our pencil tool and then only search in that neighborhood and only pull lists from there. That way, if I find that motivated seller, I've got the comps to prove value and it creates those margins for me. Now, if I want an on-market deal, then I can find that by clicking one button. This right here, Nick, is part of our patent pending feature set we have with the USPTO. We basically reverse engineer all of the closed deals and use those as a model for what a successful deal looks like. And then the system goes in and finds deals for us. But the default filter is set to 75. I'm going to lower this because in some markets like LA, it's like 80%. In this market, I want to be a little bit lower. And then I can adjust and I can build my buy box in here so that I'm not finding properties that just don't make any sense financially. And I could base it off of, what I got approved for from my lender, or, what I know my buyers want. Maybe I go and I talk to that buyer who flipped that deal before and I ask them, what's your buy box? I can recreate that buy box inside of Privy. So I don't have to go there and find these things manually every day. So here's a bunch of different properties you can write offers on right now. So let's look at this one right here. This one's 95 grand. Needs a little bit of work. It's not horrible. If I come down to the comparables, looks like this house is in a neighborhood where they just flipped a house, but it hasn't sold yet. It's actually for sale for 12 days now. But at some point it's going to sell. And they're thinking if it does sell around that, it'll be 49% of the ARV, but it's probably gonna be closer to like 180 because it sat for a couple of days. But look at the rents. There's actually good rental data in this area for this property too. So that property might actually be a better rental than it is a fix and flip, but we have data that says it could be a fix and flip. But you mentioned earlier, you alluded to the Burr strategy, Nick. That might be a good strategy for that particular property. That one looked like a rental. 179, 21,079 grand. This one's 79,000. We look at the comparables in this one. Looks like I was playing with the comp zone here, but let's reset this.
Yeah, I think what's important for folks to understand is that, not all strategies fit all properties that you're analyzing, right? And that's why having multiple strategies for acquisition and disposition only betters your chances of getting the deal done. So, some properties may only be best suited for wholesaling, assigning them for a fee. Some might only work as buy and hold. Some of them might only work as fix and flip. Some might not work for any of those. And the only strategy is maybe something creatively. So you just don't know until you run the numbers and you analyze the data that you have available to you to make the best informed decision.
100%. Yeah, and this one has comps over 200,000 as well. So there's another potential deal. So you guys, you can run this analysis in any city, right? This is just one market. If I did the same thing in Chicago, and I zoom a little bit closer, it's going to find deals here, and you can have searches saved in multiple markets across the US. You can have searches saved for buy and hold properties. You can have searches saved for different scenarios, and you can have searches saved for what Nick's going to talk about here in a second. But look at these numbers, 124 grand. This house is for sale for, and it's right down the street that just was fix and flipped and sold for 310. So this house at asking price is at 40% of the ARV. That's without even asking for a discount. Now, some of the properties that we're going to find in Privy have less equity, right? And so what do you do with those? Do you just pass up on those properties? Well, no, you don't just pass up on those properties. But here's one thing that we can do. So Nick, I'm going to transition into the next strategy here. Did you want to do it on your end? Or you want me to do it?
You know what, why don't you, since you have this up, why don't you go ahead and just sort of do a quick overview of what we're talking about, and then I'll jump in, I'll take control and I'll walk through some slides on why we do this strategy, and then we'll actually do an actual deal with the Privy data so I can, you know, articulate and show the value, if you will.
Which market do you want me to target?
I would say, I think we were looking at a couple of them. Why don't we do let's look at Kansas City. I think we were looking at Atlanta and Orlando, but let's go Kansas City.
All right, so let's look at Kansas City. So there are some opportunities here that could make sense from a foreclosure perspective. But let's go ahead and we're going to change the percentage. So right now we're capping it at 55%. With Nick's strategy, it works better if there's less equity. So we're going to raise this all the way up to 100%. And then what price ceiling do you want on this?
You know, Kansas City, I maybe say $300,000. That's probably about the max of it, I would say.
Okay, so price ceiling.
Yeah.
We'll rerun this. And so now this is going to show us all the stuff that's here, and it's going to show us things that wouldn't make sense from a foreclosure perspective. All right, so let's go ahead and sort these results, not foreclosure, wholesale or fix and flip. And I'm going to reverse the sorting. Okay, so here's, I reverse the sorting on these.
Okay, yeah. So these are all, you know, and so what we'll show is that the nice thing is that we can take the data and download it into an export, and then sort and do data analytics from the spreadsheet. But what I like about it on this level, because you don't need to do so many of them, you can do it at the property level and get a lot more data real time from working on that. So you know what, let's go ahead and let me go ahead and take the screen over, and let me go through why we do what we do. So when we get to this part, when I pull it back up, it'll make sense, because it's a little bit different strategy than what you've shown, but how you can look at a property and go, oh, this is a good opportunity for fix and flip, or this is a good property for buy and hold, or this is potentially a good property for something creatively. So let me get my screen share on here. You need
so the properties that you're going to show us were found doing the same filter, you guys, that I just showed you.
Yeah.
So you raise the percentage to 100%, and then you reverse the sort. So the ones that have the highest percentage of ARV show up at the top of the list. Sounds backward, but Nick's going to show us why that's exciting.
Yeah, well, it's exciting to me. We'll see if it's exciting for anybody else. All right, let me share the screen here, and let me go through these. I'm just going to go through at a very high level, some just information here. Okay, so I built this software, Benson, around the data, right? The data sources. We get data from all different places. All right, the software is agnostic. It doesn't really care where the data comes from. But at the end of the day, we want to take data that we can download from inside of Privy and then do some calculations that are difficult to do manually and see what the potential outcome is going to be. So I used to do this all on a spreadsheet. Well, spreadsheets are a little bit hard to do, so we sort of gave that up and built an actual SaaS product. So let me run through a couple slides real quick. So what is Deal Evaluator and who is it for, right? Well, it's for people that are trying to do more deals without doing a couple things, like, you know, be able to add triple, quadruple. I've got people that are doing 5 times more deals than they did in the previous, because they were so focused on one market or one strategy. But the best part about it, you don't have to spend any more money or on marketing. It's already there. You're just looking at the data a little differently. And the strategy works and the software works extremely well in declining markets and increasing interest rates. We talked a little bit about BRRRR strategy. Well, it was a lot easier to do the BRRRR strategy when rates were 3% than they are when they're at 7.5 or 8. Doesn't mean you can't do it. There's just less deals to do. Okay. So who is this really for? We call it Be the Bank. It's really for anybody that's a wholesaler, fix and flipper, realtors, and landlords. And we're going to show how they can take those exact data points and marketing that they've already done and look at the data and information a little bit better and hopefully come up with another potential deal that they didn't think even existed. Okay. So let's go here. So, real quick, because a lot of people may not know who I am. Again, Nick Legamaro. I'm a creative financing expert. I've been doing this since early 2000, before the crash in 2007, 8, 9. I've done over 1,200 creative financing transactions. I even had a seller financing private mortgage company that I sold to a federally chartered bank. A published author. I have a Creative Dealmaker Academy with my partner Eric Sage, where we teach these sort of high-end structuring tactics. And then I created what we call the Perfect Note Blueprint, which is basically managing the transaction after you find the deal. And then, of course, we're going to talk about today is the Deal Evaluator software. And in a future, like in the masterclass, we'll get into some of this other stuff. I really want to spend 15, 20 minutes on this and really just go through at a high level, because I can never cover it even in an hour probably. So what I have here is this sort of like, I call it turnkey deal management, right? So, and I just want you to visually see what this means, because it's one thing to have good data and to have a plan, but the real estate transaction is massive, Benson, right? It starts from finding the deal first, then acquiring it, then everything in between to get to the disposition to get paid. So what I did here is I just put it all in a visual thing. Well, Privy is the data source, which is how we find the deal. All right. Deal Evaluator is how we're gonna show that here in a second, how you would evaluate it to see if it's a deal or not a deal. And then when you get into the USA Home Partners, the Note Creator Blueprint, and the Note Pro, that's sort of the back end side of it, the turnkey side of it, to make sure that you create it correctly, you structure it right, and you get out the deal. And then lastly on here on this slide is the Creative Dealmaker Academy, where we take high-end real estate investors and really show them how to really grow their business. So I just want to show that, people not to freak out when they see what the Deal Evaluator does, because there's a system for all of it that we're not going to necessarily talk about today. We're just not going to leave them hanging. Okay. All right, let's go on. Let's get to the good stuff. All right. So I don't know if you heard this or not before, but right now everyone is a creative financing guru. I don't know if you hear that much on the streets, Benson, but I hear it every day, right? Everybody now, the cool thing to do is go do creative deal structuring, sub 2 seller finance, sub 3 hybrid this, whatever. I mean, I've been doing all of this for a very long time. And the truth of the matter is that not everybody is a creative financing guru. And the reason why I know this is because I'm not going to go into details on this, but through the note creator side of what we do, there's a bunch of compliance and a bunch of underwriting that has to be done to protect everybody in the equation. It's super, super important. And if you don't have people on the team that are doing this for you, or you understand what it is, you're dealing with a situation that you may not want to be getting into. So I'm not going to give you legal advice or accounting advice or anything like that. I'm just saying, make sure that you understand who is providing the consulting or the education side of it. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a 100K payday example, Benson, because most of these deals that we do, and we're going to show, are deals that are low equity, no equity, or negative equity, but we're still able to produce $100,000 plus returns. And I'm going to show that here in a second. But before I do that, I want to talk about what I call my $6 million mistake. Okay. And it took me about 400 deals to figure out this mistake. And it wasn't like I lost $6 million, Benson. I lost the opportunity to earn an additional $6 million because of the structuring of what I was doing inefficiently. Okay. Super, super important. And that's sort of what was the precursor to the software that now exists today. Okay. So one thing I want you guys to think about before I get into the actual data and what we're doing is why you should consider creating a note or a wrap mortgage and or potentially be the bank. And the numbers are pretty, they're, I'll just show them to you. Well, let's first, how big is the seller carry market? Because what people don't understand is what even the ability is to potentially be a bank, which means providing a mortgage opportunity to, somebody that can't get a traditional bank loan. Okay. Well, that market today, Benson, is about $23 billion. Okay. $23 billion. That's a billion with a B. That means in the last 4 years, there's been over $100 billion of privately created mortgages in the United States. Well, where do these deals come from, right? Well, they come from people that can't sell it on a retail basis, or they come from people like ourselves, and then we show how to use software to go find it and leverage existing debt or seller financing and create our own opportunities, which is what I'm going to show in a second. So that's number one. It's a fairly large market that most people haven't typically heard about or have any idea that it's that large. But here's my favorite stat of all. Why is the seller carry market so big? Okay, this is really important to see visually. In today's economy, in today's marketplace, 60 to 70% of the population cannot get a traditional bank loan from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or Citibank. Okay. And reason being is that they've changed their jobs after COVID. They have side hustles, they have multiple jobs. They're just different than it was 10, 15 years ago when a lot of people had a W-2 job. It's not necessarily the case anymore. The other reason why this model is super, super attractive is that of all the properties that are available for sale on the market, if you go do a Zillow search, for example, and you look at a zip code or a county or whatever, less than 5%, Benson, 5 out of 100 houses in any one market are even available to be purchased with seller financing. So if you think about it from an economic standpoint, is 60 to 70% of the population needs something besides traditional bank financing, but only 5% of the properties are available offer that. It seems like a pretty good position to be in if you can be on both sides of that equation. That's why seller financing and private mortgage trading is so profitable and so valuable. And I'm going to get into it here.
This might sound really basic here, but can you explain to the audience what seller financing is? What is a seller carry?
So seller financing is just basically creating a mortgage on behalf of yourself as the lender or the seller to a buyer that cannot go or chooses not to go get a bank loan. Okay.
You're talking about the end buyer. What about you buying the house first?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to buy it creatively. I'm going to show that here in a second. And I'm going to show you exactly how that works. So I'm glad you asked that. So we'll get to that point when we go into the data and show you exactly how we're going to make offers based on what we perceive to be the underlying debt or no debt on the property. Okay. So real quick, guys, to get all this stuff, I've got a bunch of stuff to give away. We're going to give away the deal analyzer. You're going to get a link to the private Facebook group. If you want to do this, great. If you don't, that's fine. I have a YouTube channel where we do these deal or no deals, just like the one I'm going to show right now. So if you get a deal and you're not sure what to do with it, submit it. We'll do it live and we'll go walk through it, and everybody benefits from it because we show people what is a deal, what is not a deal. And that's education that hopefully benefits everybody to learn something. Because, be quite honest with you, this is the exception to the rule, Benson, right? For the most part, you don't see this stuff being taught traditionally. There's a few people in the space now, but only recently this has been done. So we want to make sure that we educate properly, and we make sure that people understand what are the pitfalls and what they should look at. That's why we do this. So take a screenshot of this, go do this. And by the way, anybody that does this here, we're going to be doing a half-day masterclass at sometime in the very near future. And so don't worry about if you don't understand it, because we're going to break it down on a much deeper level during the masterclass. All right, so let's get into the 100K paid example here. Okay, so let me switch my screen share and go to live if I can. Let me stop sharing for a second. And let me pull this up because I got it right here, and we share it again. Here we go. All right, super. Let me know that you can see the screen, Benson. You see it okay?
I can see it. Yep.
All right, super. So let's start with the Privy data first, okay? So in this Privy data right here, we did an extraction, and I did some, for the interest of time, I wanted to make sure that we didn't spend too much time doing a lot of the stuff that the download will do, right? It's visually much more attractive to look at it on a per property basis than it is to download 100 properties and look at a bunch of numbers, okay? So
Mhm.
I identified 6 of them here, and I want to go through them real quick and explain exactly what we're looking for. So in the filter, we've already showed what some of the filters are, and we'll provide these filtering avatars, if you will, through the follow-up. But let's look at this first deal here. Okay. So some of the stuff that I like to personally see, I love occupied properties. Okay. It's got a bunch of furniture. That's cool. That means it hasn't probably been remodeled. And if it was, it wasn't done recently. This is not an investor property, right? More than likely, it's a homeowner's property. So that's number one. The next thing I want to look at down here is I'm going to start looking at some of the details. Okay. And in the details, I can learn some other stuff in here, some just general stuff. I get the comps if I need the comps. But then the most important thing I want to look at public records. And I want to go to the mortgage history, because the mortgage is what I'm really the most interested in. So if I look at this property right here, it tells me that this was a note that was created almost exactly 2 years ago. And the note value that's recorded was about $128,000. So I can see real quick here that if they're asking 272 and it's in a 0128, they're not really asking for $272,000, Benson. They're really looking to pocket somewhere, whatever this difference is, less expensive. So this is a sort of we're not going to go through this deal because it's a little bit more detail. We call this a hybrid deal, where we take it over subject to the debt, which is this nice 3% mortgage. I joke about it right now. I mean, Jesus can't go get a 3% mortgage right now. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, this is the asset this is the most important part of this deal is the debt. So if I can structure a deal with the seller, give them what they're asking for and what they want, they can give us something back in return. It's a win-win for everybody. So I'm not going to do this deal, but this deal right here is everywhere. This deal is everywhere where there's a lot of equity in these deals. We got to somehow come up and pay for that equity. Maybe we get the seller to stay in, maybe we got to borrow it. But these deals right here are everywhere and they're super, super valuable. Okay, let's go. I'm going to come back to this one. Let's look at this one right here. Let's see again. Same thing. This looks like it's
People live in it.
yeah, it looks like in it. Let's go to see if there's any public data on this one. Let's go to the mortgage history. So this one's a little bit older. Okay, it's about 5 years old. The rate's 4.38%. The rate's not as low, but I've got an extra 2 years of pay down on that 30-year debt. Super, super important. I'm not going to get into the details on why that's important now, but if you understand amortization and how amortization works and how to leverage it, this is what banks have been doing for years, Benson. Okay. Banks have used amortization as their benefit forever. There's a reason why banks are in the banking business, is because they learned a long time ago how to control real estate without owning it. Contrary to popular belief, most people think the only way you can generate cash flow is by owning a property and making cash flow from a rental. Well, banks don't own anything and they make tons of cash flow. And that's exactly the premise of how we operate. Think, act, and be a bank. All right. So this is another very good deal. $149,000 in debt at 4.38%. And the seller's asking 287. So we got to figure out how to hybrid that deal. Again, that's part of the master class. But let's just find, there's one in here that I know let's look at Bellevue. So let's go to Bellevue and then let's get into the software and really show how this works. Okay. So here is this deal right here. Okay. At first, I thought it was a remodel. Okay. Because that's what it looks like to me. It's clean on the outside. It's vacant on the inside. But in reality, if I look at so there's a couple things I want to show in here. So when I go to the details, couple things, this is why you got to read the fine print. Okay. I noticed on here, check this out in the private remarks. Seller is willing to work on options to carry a small secondary loan. Call with questions. Okay. That means they're really motivated. Okay. That tells me right now it's how A, the house is vacant. B, they're saying we'll do something creative. So they're already thinking like I think. Okay, that's good. But let's go into the actual public records and look at the mortgage data itself. Okay. So here it is. They've had it a little under 2 years, but man, look at this. They owe 170. They borrowed 172. They're only asking 179. Now, look, I'm not great at math in my head, but I do know that if they're selling it for 179 and they're asking and they borrowed 172, the likelihood that they're going to put cash in their pocket based on these numbers is highly, highly unlikely, just because of the cost it is to close, seller concessions, realtor fees, etc. Okay. Usually it's about 8 to 10%. And that puts it at what, 160-ish? They own more than 160. I know that because it's only 2 years old. So now we have this data. Okay. So now I'm going to take all this data that we know and I'm going to pull it up in the actual deal evaluator software. Okay. So I'm going to pull it up right here. And I've already put it in because in the interest of time, I didn't want to go back and forth. Visually, it'll be much more appealing. So I put the address in right here, and immediately it populates it over on the right side. We're building this summary here. Okay. I'm not going to get into the details of all the line items. I just want to show the end result on this deal. But here's the as-is value, and it matches. It's pretty close to what the sales price is. Okay. I think the after repair value is actually a little bit higher based on the comps that I saw. Okay. And you got rent. So now we go into how we're going to acquire this. Okay. Now I haven't even had a conversation yet with the realtor, or if it's a direct to sell. I haven't had this yet. I'm trying to figure out what I can afford or what I'm willing to pay so I can make appropriate offers. So I do know that I'm going to need to buy this property subject to, because we already know the existing debt is extremely valuable. It was 3.05%. So what does that mean? It means we're going to make an offer to the seller to keep the debt in place and pay them some amount of cash and get them to equal or above what they're asking for. Okay.
Right.
And I'm going to
just
show
to be clear, you guys, like that deal would not have made sense from any other strategy. It would not have been a wholesale deal,
exactly that,
or a fix and flip. The rentals was okay, it was decent. But if you're looking at this property from a traditional standpoint, you would have passed up on it. Okay. So Nick's now showing you this completely different strategy where you can take all the properties you come across and still potentially make money on them because of this very unique format.
And what we'll see is when we get to the exit strategies, it'll break it down there, and you'll be able to compare and contrast those exact points. So let's go into this. So in the software, you can choose how you want to acquire it. Okay. I'm just going to default to subject to because the other two strategies are covered anyway. Plus, quite honest with you, I don't have no reason to buy with cash or a cash equivalent anymore. Owner financing and subject to, the only difference between the two is that the seller becomes the bank for you in owner financing, whereas subject to is that you're taking over the seller's debt. Okay. So let's get into the next screen. So here's the unpaid balance on the note. And you can, most of the stuff when we download the data, we get more data than we see on that level. But we already solved for it. So we know that they borrowed 172 2 years ago. They still owe 168. Why is that? Because amortization, that's what happens. Banks get paid all their interest first, and you get very little pay down on your principal, even when the rate's that low. Okay, so what I did here is I just forecasted I'm going to pay the seller $5,000. Maybe it's 8, maybe it's 10. If they say I need 10, then we'll come back and remodel the calculation. I know the agent's going to get about 3% typically. So if they're asking 180 times 3, it's about $5,000. Okay. You can put 6 in there if you want. I think it's 54, whatever the number is, 54. I could change it. Not a big deal. Closing costs, I know, are going to be about $4,500. Why am I putting all this in? Because I know that I'm going to need some cash to do this transaction. And over here, it's adding everything up which is the total acquisition cost. And right now it's at $22,000. And I will explain that in a second. So as we go on through this, I also got in here $7,500 for holding cost. Because if I buy this, before I find my buyer that I'm going to sell it to, I'm still responsible for payments to the underlying mortgage. So I personally calculate about 5 to 6 months holding cost, which is, if you look at the total payment on it, that's what this turns out to be. Okay. About $1,500 a month, 1,500 times 5, $7,500. That's where that number comes from. Okay. Because I can't predict the future on how fast I'm going to be able to sell a house. Okay. But I will tell you this, I've done 1,500 of these since 2001 in some capacity. And I think the longest I ever held any house is 6 months. So is it possible I go longer than 6 months or you go longer? Yeah, it's possible. Is it probable? Probably not, if you do a good job of analyzing the deal correctly in the beginning. So that's how much I'm into the deal. So now we got to get into the existing loan details. I prefer a mortgage statement, which comes from the seller or the agent, but we're before that point right now because we're looking at data that we're trying to look at a high level and determine if this is even worth a phone call to the realtors. Okay. Because a lot of people just do agent outreach and make phone calls, which is cool. But the problem is that they don't even know what the debt looks like. Okay. So how do you even, I mean, you're starting off on the wrong foot, in my opinion, by not knowing the answers to the questions that's already readily available through the data, right? I'm going to tell the seller and the agent exactly what I'm going to give them based on the data that I have. So I know from the data that I calculated and with a high degree of a probability that based on 3.05% interest, I know there's about 20 months pay down. Here's the payment. And now I know what my underlying debt is on principal and interest only going back out the door. Okay. So
you just put the remaining term, you don't put what it was originally amortized over.
Great question. So if you go to, every time we add another amortization table, it creates it over here. So to your point, I can pull up the amortization table and look at what the start date is. It's January 2022. We want to know what's remaining, not what it initially was, because when you understand amortization, the pay down at 3% with 2 years head start, going to pay down super fast compared to what we're going to create to our new buyer. And it's all part of the arbitrage strategy. So we know exactly what it is right here. We had a mortgage statement, we would know exactly what it is, but this is done with a very high degree of probability. So now we've acquired this deal, and we know that for us to buy this deal, if we can get the seller to say yes to our offer. And what is our offer? Let's just recap our offer. Our offer is we'll pay them $5,000 and we'll pay the agent fee and we'll pay all the closing costs. They walk away with $5,000 in their pocket instead of writing a check for maybe $5,000, and we will take over the payments on their existing debt. Okay. A lot of people say you can't assume a loan. Well, that's true, but we're not doing a qualified assumption. We're doing what's called a non-qualified assumption, which is perfectly legal. So we'll talk about that later and probably in depth in the masterclass. So here we go. So now we know what our debt is. We know what our responsibility is. Now we got to figure out what we're going to do with this property. Okay. So I think conservatively that we could sell this for 190. In fact, that's what they were asking for it about before. When I ran the comps, I came in anywhere between 190 and 205, maybe even 210. I'm going to be conservative in my model. I may ask for 200 when I go to sell it, but I'm going to put 190 in here right now because I want to deal. I want to make sure that I don't overestimate things. I don't want to underestimate how long I'm going to be in it. I don't want to underestimate how much I'm going to sell it for. I want to do any of that. I want to be conservative in my numbers. So the default's 10%. We get 10% on almost every deal that we do. I highly recommend it. You don't take anything less than that. And so we're going to finance $171,000, right? So 190, get $19,000 down. We're at 171. Now I want to show you one thing here, Benson. 190 is the sales price. My total cost basis on this deal is 190. That's a zero equity deal. Would you agree? I'm selling it for exactly what I'm paying. Okay. people go, how can you sell something for exactly what you're paying? Well, we're going to show you here when we get to the next screen. So basically, I'm paying exactly what I'm going to sell it for. Okay. The value is in the debt. Okay. So I'm just going to go through the loans. We do 2 loans. Not going to get into it on the acquisition side. It's a disposition strategy, why we do it. Don't have time to cover it today. We'll cover it in the masterclass. So let's get into the funding side of it, because now we have a decision we have to make, right? We know we need $22,000. So where's $22,000 going to come from? Okay. Well, you either got to come up with the cash or you got to borrow it. Okay. So I'm going to use, and you have a couple of different options. You could have the seller potentially carry it. Probably unlikely in this situation. You can go borrow it, which is more likely through private money or a private lender. Okay. Or you can put your own cash in. Most people are probably going to go borrow the money. Okay. So I'm going to use third party, and I'm going to go to the next screen here. So when we get to this screen, this is where we start really seeing the deal materializing. So what it says right here at the top is that I need $22,000. Okay. So I need to borrow $22,000. So what I personally do is I come down and first thing I do is I put 15% interest rate for 60 months, borrow private money. Do you think that to borrow private money for 5 years at a 15% interest rate is a pretty good deal, Benson? Do you think that's readily available?
Anybody who's done a private financing deal in the past, who's comfortable with the concept, would take that deal.
I would agree. Is it probable? Yeah, it's greater than probable. Could you get it for 12%? Absolutely. Could you get it for 10? Sure. Could it cost you 20? Absolutely. That's why we do this. In fact, let me show you one thing. Don't let me forget to come back. What this says right here is that we're going to pay our private money lender $22,000, and we're going to pay him 15% over 60 months, and we're going to give him $523 a month, which is fully amortized. It's a fully amortized payment. Okay. It's not interest only. And why we do this is because we don't have to go back and try to find a replacement for that capital if they only are in it for 1 year. This is a big problem with people that borrow private money, is that there's a balloon, right? They pay interest only for a year or 2 years, and there's a balloon. And the problem is that it's hard to go fix that balloon. We're locking it in for 5 years. But let me show you one thing here. Let me show you how valuable the software is and what this deal does. Let's just say that my investor, he wants 20%. Let's just see if it works. I can come over and solve it. Look at that, Benson. I can pay 20% and I'm still cash flowing $241 a month while I'm paying it off. Okay. So I'm going to go back to what is probably going to get. And when I solve for it, now this whole thing says I'm going to make $301 a month cash flow, net cash flow on this deal. And I'm still paying my lender $523 a month. And I'm still paying Wells Fargo, whatever that debt was. Okay. You follow me up to this point?
Yep.
Okay. So now let's get to the really good stuff where people go, oh, I still don't understand. Well, let's just show it. So now we talked about the different strategies earlier. Okay. So let's look at the first one. So the estimated cash offer. So if you're a wholesaler and you saw this deal and you wanted to make a wholesale offer, typically speaking, wholesalers, depending on the market, on average, are probably offering somewhere around 70%, which is the maximum law offer, less repairs, less profit. Okay. Say it's 80%, doesn't really matter. They're going to have to offer around $140,000. Okay. Okay. Well, we already know, we go back to the property purchase, the seller owes 168. Okay. So I don't know about you, Benson. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's improbable that a seller is going to write a check for $28,000 to get out of this deal. Would you agree?
I agree.
They would probably rather take five. Well,
Yep.
they would
That's
rather
why they
take
put that in the
$5,000.
remarks, that they're willing to carry a small
100%.
note because they know they're in a corner.
100%. So a wholesaler is never going to get this deal executed for that cash price, especially when the seller might have another alternative, which is carrying back the debt indirectly by leaving the note in place. That's number one. Let's look at the cash flow. Okay, based on the calculations that we have in the algorithms, the cash flow on this is $37 a month. Okay, $37 a month. I don't know about you. I don't know how many times you can buy a no equity deal and make $37 a month and feel that's a good investment, even with the underlying debt in place. But here's the other kicker to this, okay? You still got $22,000 of debt that you borrowed in conjunction with that. That has to get paid at some point anyway. So this fails the buy and hold model, even buying it with the debt in place. So really what it comes up to is that the strategy that we do almost all the time is this last strategy right here. And what's important on this is just a summary of what we know so far: cash to seller, purchase price, acquisition. But here's the main numbers. It says the monthly cash flow that we're gonna, this is everything I'm talking about to us is net. There is no expenses being a bank. Think about it. The bank gets their money, they get their principal and interest, and the borrower pays the taxes and insurance, repairs, maintenance. That's on the homeowner side, right? Remember, we're going to become a bank here. So in this example, the monthly cash flow, even with the gap funding in place for 60 months, is still $301.36. You follow me? As soon as that 60 months expires and we paid off our private money partner in this deal, our cash flow goes up to $824 a month. Okay. So now
So
we
a
have
smart thing would be to not put a prepayment penalty in there. And then if you close a wholesale deal and you get 25 grand, you just pay it off.
You do that too. I'm going to show you here in a second, right? That's why when you go back to the acquisition funding, I'm glad you brought that up. People go, why do you pay 15%? Why do you pay 18%? Why do you pay 20%? Because once I get the deal in place, I can go replace that debt with cheaper debt once I have it in place if I choose to. But I'm just going to leave it here, Benson, because the deal is a phenomenal deal, even at 0%, even at zero equity. And I'm going to show you here in a second. Let's go to the profit analysis. This is where what we use to determine the value. So the first thing I want to do is I solve for 100 months. Okay. Why 100 months? Well, 100 months means 100 months is a little over 8 years. When I first started doing this, even 10 years ago, the average length of a homeowner was that occupied their house they were in was about 8 to 9 years. Well, it's about 100 months. Okay. Today, the average homeowner is in their house 12 to 13 years, 150 months. Okay. So I like to model conservatively, and I have a really high confidence level that if I sell this to a buyer, the likelihood they're still in this house in 100 months is pretty high relative to the average of 150. Okay. But if they sell it or refinance it or pay it off, it doesn't really matter. We just make a little less money. Okay. So that's number one. So let's take a snapshot on what we're doing here. So what we're looking at here is cash now, and this is all net. And what cash now means in here, and the system software goes out and calculates all this. The cash now represents the net cash flow remaining after we sell the property to our buyer that we're going to finance, less from their down payment. So they give us down payment, we pay the closing costs, we pay the underwriting fees, we pay the agent, and we're still left with $6,000. We call that cash now. Okay, that's cash in our front pocket when we sell it to our buyer sometime between now and hopefully 5 to 6 months. Usually not that long, but I like to
But they
model
give you
it.
the 19 grand up front.
I know. So think about it. That's a great point. So where do the other $13,000 go? Right. Well, it goes to seller concessions.
Maintenance, property management.
Goes to insurance. It goes to seller concessions, title policies, underwriting. Maybe you have a little bit of repairs that you had in there. Goes to the agents. Typically speaking, this number is usually 10 to 15% higher, but we want to model conservatively. Hey, if I get a check it for $10,000, I'm happy, but I know that I'm at least cash positive in this model, in this situation. That's number one. Then we have what's called the cash flow. Now, this is net cash flow over 100 months. So over the next 100 months, we're going to realize in cash flow another $51,000, Benson, in cash flow. Okay. Make it a little bit less on the first 60 because we got private money we're still paying. We get more once that's paid off. The net cash flow, 100 months, $51,000. So we made $6,000 cash now, $51,000 cash flow. Okay. Then the last number here is, because we're using 100 months, is the 100-month payout. And what does that mean? It means at 100 months, when we forecast this out, if our buyer sells it, refinance it, pays it off, or we go sell a note and leverage the note or whatever, we're going to get another payout of $27,000. And what that means, it's the net difference between what we owe to Wells Fargo, because we've already paid off the private lender in this model, and what's owed to us from the mortgage and the wrap that we created. Follow me?
Yeah.
The net difference of that is the cash later portion of this, which is another $27,000. So if we analyze this deal over 100 months, the total profit on this deal is $84,000. Okay. That's in this example. Excuse me. The other number I want you to look at right here is the monthly recurring revenue, the average. So over this 100 months, the monthly revenue average is $842 a month. Okay. Net cash flow on average on a zero equity deal where we borrowed the money against it. We used underlying debt from the seller. And this is the deal on a deal that you couldn't flip as a wholesale deal, and you couldn't do it as a buy and hold. Okay. That's it. That's why we do these deals. And then the last thing I want to show, we talk about the 100K payday. So I saw to see how many months it takes to get me to 100K. So since it's under 100,000, I know it's got to be greater than 100,000. Let's start with 110. It's going to be a little higher than that. Let's try 115. 115 it is. So what does that mean? It means to attain to attain $100,000 net payday on this one deal that was not a rental property, was not a cash wholesale deal, and it was only a wrap. It would take 115 months to generate $100,000 net profit. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? So this is on the higher end of where I want to be. My number is 10 years or less. Okay. So 120 months. If this number was above 120, I probably would have to go back and see if I can reduce the cash out of pocket on the deal if I had to. That's number one. So 115 is still within my go range. I would do this deal. Okay. If it met all my other underlying requirements, which it would do. I see deals as low as 50 or 60 months. Sometimes I see them 170 months. That's why we put it in the model so that we can compare other deals to each other. So we know exactly how many months it takes, because not every deal has the same interest rate. Not every deal has the same principal pay down on how much is remaining. And not every deal has the same borrower with down payment and the same interest rate on these deals. So this is the ultimate equalizer. So going back to this exit strategy, and then we'll wrap this up, is that it fails the wholesale model because you're not going to sell it for, seller's not going to sell it for $28,000 less than what they owe, typically. Is it possible? Yeah, probable no. Okay. You're not going to keep this as a buy and hold. Okay. So if this deal came across your desk and you had all this information and you put it in the software and you wanted to do the deal, then this is the net impact of it right here. So the question I always want to bring up at this point is that you can wholesale these deals too, Benson.
You mentioned that before. And there's a buyer for everything, right? So
100% there is. And I will tell you this right now. It's easier to negotiate with the seller a price that they're asking for and have them work with you on terms, okay, than it is to go try to give them 50, 60 cents on the dollar. Plus you have a lot less people doing against it. That's number one. Plus you have buyers for this. And most buyers, investors are going to do this. This is the strategy, and this is what we do. The software will run up to 8 amortization tables. So if there's solar in there, we can put it in there. If there's a second lien, we can add it in there. And every time we add an amortization We create a brand new amortization over here, and the software takes all that data and calculates the profit analysis based on the data that's available. And you can't really screw it up unless you put bad data in. But if you put
Right.
actual data in, this is it. And this is the model, and we can do, these.
I see the keys being selling it to the seller, right? Selling the opportunity to them, and so it makes sense. Finding the money for the acquisition cost, which you have people for that, right?
Yep.
And then also finding the person who's going to buy the house from you. So you need a network of people who can't get traditional lending.
Yes.
Right? You've got those people too in your network, but
Mhm.
they're also all over Craigslist, and they're all over the place when they're looking for non-traditional financing. And then if you were going to wholesale it, which is not every scenario, you'd have to find people who are willing to buy these kinds of deals. But those are all easy things to solve.
They really are. And when you're talking about a deal that's going to yield you $100,000 in perpetuity over 8 to 10 years, it's worth structuring right from the beginning, in my opinion, because you're going to get the benefit of cash now, cash flow, and cash later over time. And it's a great cash flow model. I mean, how many deals do you need to do if the average deal makes you $300 a month cash flow and then goes to $800 a month, and you do one of those a month, right? If you only did one every quarter, you did that, you put 20 in a portfolio. Now you're making $10,000 a month in net cash flow. You did the work once and you're getting the benefit of it. The challenge when you're a wholesaler, it's a job, right? You got to continue to do it over and over and over again. If you don't do a deal, you don't get paid. If you're a buy and hold investor, then you got a bunch of other issues you're dealing with deferred maintenance, property management, insurance, taxes, liability, and stuff along those lines. So that's pretty much it. I want to go back to the other thing. Benson, what other questions do you have, or that we want to?
Well, let's do those at the end. I want to give everybody a chance here who stayed for the whole presentation, a chance to get access to these tools so they can implement them into their business. And then you guys, Nick did say he's going to do another follow-up training. He goes more in depth. So we'll let you know how to get access to that. But for those of you that don't have Privy yet, you saw how powerful it was to analyze properties, to get access to direct to MLS data, to find investor-friendly agents, to get real deals sent to you every single day that have deep discounts, but also to find properties that maybe not everyone's going for. Maybe those properties that have higher equity or no equity or negative equity. And we showed you how you can adjust the filter inside Privy to find those opportunities, people who've already raised their hand and said they want to sell them through the on market. And you could certainly find some off market too. It just requires a little bit more marketing and sales ability, but they're there too. But now we have another tool in the toolbox. We know that you can go and you can propose a seller financing structure where they get what they want. And then you can basically build a note structure where you get the cash flow, and then you find people who want to buy those houses. Where, again, remember Nick said, you don't have to control the property to make money on it. You just have to be the bank. And that's what banks do. So you can find these people who can't qualify for traditional mortgages. It's something like, was it 90%? What was the amount of people?
60 to 70% can't get a traditional bank loan.
60 to 70% can't get a traditional mortgage. And then there was, it was like 95% of properties don't offer it.
Yeah, 95% you can't even buy. The seller doesn't offer the terms.
Right. So that's the thing. So we're basically showing you more ways you can use Privy, and Nick has built the amazing deal analyzer that will help you run the numbers on those things. You see that it's a little more complicated, but you saw how
easy. Everybody would do it,
was.
Benson, and there wouldn't be any money to be made. This is sort of the next level, if you will, of stuff that you can do. But when you can make $100,000, it's worth putting the effort in. But you know what? There's plenty of help to help these deals get done. It doesn't like that you have to do it on your own.
So for those of you that don't have Privy, I did put together a special offer for you. Our normal pricing on Privy is $1,788 for the year. Now, several months ago, we were letting you guys know that the prices were going to change. They changed, okay? But if you do decide you want to come on with Privy and take advantage of it, we do have a discount on the annual plan, which includes all the training, in-person training. You get to come to these Privy trainings that we're doing now twice per week for free. So $1,788, but I'm going to take it all the way down 30% off to $1,252 for the year. Okay, $1,252 for the year. Now, for some of you, the timing maybe just isn't right for that, but you saw some of those deals that we found from just a wholesale perspective that would easily pay this off and just with one deal. And Nick showed you how you can find properties that will make you $100,000 plus over the next 8 to 10 years. And that's only if you did one of them. It's only if you did one of his creative deals or one of our wholesale deals. We're going to be sending you stuff every single day. Okay, so I'm going to grab the links for you so you can go ahead and get signed up. And if you are not in a position right now to take advantage of that 30% off, then what you're going to do is you're going to use promo code Done Deal. That's promo code Done Deal. And that's going to get you that 30% off, as well as if you want to go in the monthly plan, we'll take you down and we'll do $119 for your first month. So 20% off of your first month. And then it's only $149 a month thereafter. So we showed you a lot of really cool things tonight. I hope that opened up your mind to some of the possibilities. If you're already a Privy user, reach out. Do you have a link or something?
Yeah, so let me go back and let me just pull my screen up again, because look, if
can you put a link in the chat they can click?
I probably can. Let me go ahead and get the code, because I gotta scan it. Yes, I will. So let me.
Okay, we'll just put it in there. But again, you guys, the promo code's Done Deal. 30% off the annual plan, or $149 for the first month. And we do have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there's absolutely no risk to use the software. Try it out, make sure it works for you.
Great. And we also do this. We also do the same thing, try out the deal evaluator, run some deals in it, come on our Deal or No Deal Live that I host almost regularly on a daily basis, submit a deal if you're not sure, and just test drive everything and make sure that it's what you ultimately need to run your business. So let me put this link in the chat here. Okay.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
You go there. You can go ahead and click on that, and then you just put your information in. We'll get you access to the Deal Evaluator. We'll get you access to the any of the other materials that we have, and get you access to our other stuff. Don't see anything in the chat.
I just reposted it. You sent it to hosts and panelists.
Oh, gotcha. Perfect. All right, super.
Yep.
Oh yeah, panels. Got it.
And then for those of you that have questions, let's see here. Shaka, yes, we are recording this. This is streaming live to the Privy YouTube channel. So you can come here and you can watch that later on. And then we will also, make sure you have access to all the information you need. But here's the link. That's once we end it here, it's I think it maybe processes for a little bit of time, and then it will be available to see again.
Well, awesome. Anything else that we didn't cover? I mean, if they get the information in there, we'll get them out there. They can communicate with our team. Happy to help people get these deals evaluated, underwritten, and start making cash flow, or even just maybe we're even a buyer for some of these. You just never know. So happy to help any way that we can.
Awesome. Well, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's on YouTube. Nav, thank you so much for being here. We got some other people who were chatting. Gloryful, Quentin, Barrett, and let's see, Danny as well. So thanks everybody. There was another group of people that were watching us on YouTube. Thanks everybody for being here. We really appreciate it. Nick, that was really insightful, just really eye-opening. This is the second or third time I've seen it, and I'm really excited about this strategy. I think it's so unique, it's so different than what's out there. And again, like you said, there's a lot of people doing sub 2, and sub 2 is great. There's some really cool people out there that do it. This has a different twist to it, right?
It does, and it can, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Just add one more tool to the tool bag and, you know, be able to monetize leads and deals that you didn't think that you could do before. Like I said, even if it's only 1 or 2 or 3 extra a year, what does that do to your bottom line? It's pretty impactful, and it's worth taking a look at and evaluating a deal with.
Love it. All right, everybody. Well, have a fantastic evening. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for your support and everything. And then let's stay in touch on the next steps. But thank you so much.
All right, guys, you have a good night.
Bye, everyone.